It is week 2 of the AI for Educators online course, and this week we're going to be digging into teaching and learning with AI. We're going to be looking at some of those things that we can do in the classroom where AI can help us and our students out. So we're going to be looking at lots of these things where it can help us as teachers, where it can save us some time and help us to do some things, but how it can also help our students to learn. So excited to see so many of you popping in live to our week 2 live broadcast. If you're watching this on the replay, hello, glad that you're joining us as well. My name is Matt Miller. I am the instructor of the course and the author of AI for Educators. And last week, if you weren't here for the live broadcast last week, it was amazing. The interaction in the chat was fantastic. We shared lots and lots of ideas, and we started digging into some of the foundational stuff we need to know about artificial intelligence. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that live stream, I highly recommend it, because some of the stuff that we talked about last week will build on the things that we're talking about this week, and will also help you have more of a full picture of what to know about AI and how it can have implications in the classroom. So, a couple of quick hellos real fast. Kathy is back again. Shelly is here as well. She said, I spent a lot of time the last week spelunking with AI tools. I love that. Actually taught an AI called AI lesson today. Okay. AI created AI lesson. Got it. Okay. Mary Alice is back. And if I remember correctly, Mary Alice, at the end of the first session, you said that you weren't quite so nervous about all this stuff anymore. So the fact that you're back again is definitely a good thing. Danette is back again from Queens, New York. Time flies when you're learning about AI. Yes, absolutely. Mike is back again, as well as Sylvia and a whole bunch of the rest of you. I know lots of you that showed up before we started. I got to interact a little bit with you in the chat. So excited to see so many of you here for week 2. So what do you say we start taking a look at what week 2 is all about? Let's start with the course first. So here's some things that you can be doing this week if you haven't already inside of the course. For one, we talked in last week's live broadcast about how we were going to vote on some new course resources. And we had a little week 1, like a little forum, a little discussion board going in week 1. So if you haven't gotten a chance to weigh in on that and you want to, if you want to let us know, what are the things that you're really interested in, some things that you want to see more of, go ahead and drop a comment in there. I will say that a lot of the teaching stuff, upgrading pedagogy and critical thinking and that kind of stuff seem to be leading the pack. So that's what I'm starting to lean towards for the next resource that I'm going to make for the course. Number 2, check out the notes and resources section. And I'm going to show you some of the featured resources, some of the things that we have in there in the next couple of slides, so that you know what all is there. And again, don't forget, with all of the resources that we have in the course, you do have lifetime access to those, which means that anytime you want to pop back into the course and re-download a PDF or rewatch a video or go back to a link that we have, or even go back and look at all of the comments from everybody, it's all going to be right there. So always feel free to come back and watch. Number 3, watch the week 2 live broadcast. There's a little check next to that one because you're doing that right now. And then number 4 is participate in the class discussion forum, which we already have like dozens of comments in already. In fact, I've pulled some of those out and put them into my slides for this evening. So I love the chat in the comments. Of course, as always, I'm going to be keeping my eyes on that and pulling you in every so often. For instance, Patty just told us our fairly large school district blocked ChatGPT. No big surprise there. Lots of folks are doing that. But my principal championed for it. Yes, I like your principal. And we at least have it for the teachers. That's fantastic. That's a step in the right direction these days, isn't it? And then here's this one that says, we did a presentation, SWWC Technology Integration Team. You told me last week what your first name was, and I just can't remember it. So forgive me for that. We did a presentation on AI for superintendents today, and we'll be doing so again tomorrow. Lots of great questions and conversations. To go along with that comment, I just did a presentation. It's David. That's right. Okay. Thanks for reminding me in the chat. So, David, I just did a presentation to a bunch of teachers in the Houston area yesterday. Flew back late last night, and here I am broadcasting you all today. But I showed them that 6-minute video that I showed during the first broadcast that shows all of the different prompts that teachers can ask and the things that it can do for the classroom. And some of them were just like gobsmacked, like dumbstruck, like they had no idea all the things that it could do. And it was like they were having that, that existential crisis that you have when you start to realize how much AI can do. They started having one of those like right in front of me, and I had to kind of like calm them down and give them some hope and some encouragement for the future and everything. So I totally get that one. Ash says, introducing an assignment where students have to create their own GimKit sets for an entire chapter in my social studies course. Assignment created by, surprise, ChatGPT. Awesome. And then one more real quick before we dive into the rest of the stuff. Mike says, I've spent this week showcasing to my students ways they can improve their learning with ChatGPT instead of simply to shortcut homework, and they are pretty excited. Love that. That's fantastic. Okay, so these are the to-dos for this week. Again, remember, we're not taking a grade for these, and there's no like requirement to do it super fast. You can do this at your own pace, of course. So, but let's dive into some of the resources that you can find in the notes and resources section for week 2. So these are the embedded slides. We make these slides in Canva. And if you use the little arrow, actually I would point this way. If you use the little arrow pointing to the right, that you can find sometimes like right over here on the right side of the page, you can click to the different pages, or there's a little button down at the bottom that lets you advance. Kind of like you can see on my slides down here where there's a button where you can advance. It's kind of like that. So this is what it all looks like. They're all kind of laid out all in kind of in order like this. And so some of the things that you'll find in there, here's one of them. It's this panel discussion that I did during the Ditch Summit. If you're not familiar with the Ditch Summit, it's the it's technically called the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit, and it's a free online conference for teachers that I put on every December. So of course this happened just during December. If you want to know more about it and even get signed up for the next one, did I mention that it's free? You can go to ditchsummit.com so that you get notifications. But we kind of pulled together a last second panel discussion about navigating ChatGPT, chatbots, and artificial intelligence in education, including, all of these folks. Like in the middle is Donnie Piercy, who is a Kentucky State Teacher of the Year. In the top right is Holly Clark, an education speaker, presenter, author. In the bottom left is Dee Lanier, former classroom teacher who works for Samsung. And then Victoria Thompson in the bottom right-hand corner, former classroom teacher who works for Microsoft. So wide variety of experiences and perspectives about all of that. And it was really fascinating to hear what all of them had to say. I pulled that video out of the Ditch Summit and stuck it into the online course so you can watch it if you want to. Also, here's another thing that you can find in the featured resources. We created a ChatGPT and AI in the classroom guide for teachers. It's a great big PDF file that pulls together lots of the stuff that we've been writing about and talking about related to ChatGPT and AI, all in one place. And so you'll find some of the definitions, implications, some of the things that we've been talking about. We've got lots of ways to use ChatGPT, including this nice little infographic that summarizes all of it. So that's all right there in the resources. This is pretty cool. So if you want to start the conversation with your students about artificial intelligence, and you want to give them a baseline foundation about how it works and what the important things are related to it, this is an entire unit called How Artificial Intelligence Works, written by Carly Mora, my blog and social media editor at Ditch That Textbook. And it includes 7 different lessons and a final project. And you can see all of the different lesson titles: Intro to AI, Machine Learning, Training Data and Bias, Neural Networks, Computer Vision, Equal Access and Algorithmic Bias, Privacy and the Future of Work. So a wide variety of stuff and important things for students to know about. So if you want to check that out, you do have access to that. Just like I was saying earlier, lifetime access. So that's a good thing. And then finally, the featured resource here is 50 plus ways ChatGPT can support educators. I kind of hinted at this last week during the live broadcast, and this is just like a great big brainstorm of different ways that ChatGPT can support you through the entire lesson design and teaching process, as well as for other tasks and even different time savers. So you'll see the little headings here. About writing lesson plans, anticipatory set or engaging students at the beginning of a lesson, exploration and providing content so that they learn, explaining important concepts, providing practice, demonstrating understanding, and then other tasks and time savers. So there's 50 plus things that you can ask ChatGPT and other AI assistants if you haven't ever really thought about them before. So, let's see. I'm seeing Patty was just saying in the comments, I shared the quote from the 6 Conversations, the little webinar that we did before this course started. Are we promoting skills that will be outsourced by AI in the future? That's a killer question, right? She says, I think that hit home. Admin wants to see teachers using it in the classroom. And then in the chat also, I just love reading all of these comments. Todd brought up a really important point. He said, I found out that our district blocks ChatGPT, but some students do it on their phones and other devices. And Patty even brought up that there are definite equity issues, which I agree too. You know, I have concerns about, like she says, there are students who only have district Chromebooks and no other access. I worry about those students that never get to see artificial intelligence in play. They never get to see it used ethically and responsibly and figure out how it can actually be a good part of our lives. So yeah, lots of things to consider when it comes to all of that. Okay, let's dig into some of the stuff that you all have been saying in our class discussions, you know, in our little discussion boards, because like I keep reminding you, you are the most valuable resource in this course, at least as far as I'm concerned. So, all right, let's start shouting out some fantastic stuff. For instance, Lisa says, and this is a response to our original question of what are some ways that that ChatGPT and AI assistants can assist you in the classroom. She says teachers can use AI in many ways to support and engage learners. For instance, number 1, language teachers can use AI to create interactive discussions and real-time language exchanges with students from different countries. All of that stuff. I remember as a Spanish teacher myself, creating all of those dialogues and all of those scripts and everything is difficult. And sometimes you don't always hit the local dialects and the vocabulary people use. So that's huge. Science teachers can use AI to engage their students in real-time experiments and concept discussions, bringing together students who share similar interests in specific areas of science. And then she says history teachers can use AI to connect their students with experts and scholars from different parts of the world, so students can receive insights into different cultures and historical events. I think one way you can do that is with the as-if prompts. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit tonight. Next, Susan Elwood shared a unit that she came up with where ChatGPT can support it. Empathy and journey mapping designs and templates for educators' collaborative service learning projects. And then she talks about how it can synthesize content, create presentations, provide template maps, and create a design checklist and rubrics. Lots of great things that it can do to support us in the classroom. Sarah Edwards, I'm just going to leave one of these little quote cards open for Sarah Edwards because it seems like she's always dropping something good in here. So Sarah, if you're watching, kudos to you. She says, I wasn't able to attend live, but I got an email from the Free Tech for Teachers daily newsletter that had an AI for feedback. It's called Got Feedback. Has anybody heard about this? So you can find it at feedback.gotlearning.com. That allows you to copy and paste or upload writing to generate feedback. We were talking about doing this a little bit during our week one live stream. You do have to create a username and a password, but it's free so far. We know that can always change. I copy pasted a letter of recommendation that was written for me, and the feedback was great. She says, I plan on using it next time someone asks me to write a letter of recommendation to make it better. Oh, look, Susan Elwood's in the house. She says, thanks, Matt. And I say, hey, thanks, Susan, for sharing that unit. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty cool what you shared. So very good. We've got one from Aaron that says, another thought I just had after this first webinar is the power of ChatGPT to create differentiated assessments for different learning styles. Yes, differentiated instruction. It's a great way to give you ideas to do that. We all have a variety of learning styles and students with individual needs, and creating assessments tailored to their needs or what the student can or prefer to do is very powerful. And then finally, one other thing I wanted to show you. This is from Brian Steinberg, who did a great big post about essay feedback and how he was using artificial intelligence to leave feedback. And if you haven't gotten a chance to see it, he's posted several things. They're fantastic. But he talks about a ChatGPT generated response to a lab paper. And so what he did was he copy pasted the lab paper into ChatGPT. And then after ChatGPT had received it, he said, I want you to write like a letter or an email to a student as suggesting feedback. And then he copied the whole thing over. And so that was really fantastic too. So again, if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at all of those, it's really, really, really good stuff. Kelly just mentioned lots of talk out there about policies being created about AI. Would love to see some examples if your district or state has already created one. I would love to see that too. So maybe see, this is what seems to happen. We get into these live streams and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. We should open that up to everybody. So Kelly, maybe I will jump in to the course and add a new discussion forum where we can post this. And then if anybody has any policies, they can post links and everything. We might not get a whole lot, but it would be interesting to see what we got. So, all right. Let's dig into our featured content for this week. This is the big one about teaching and learning with AI. Oh, check this out. I saw something about an admin that had ChatGPT write an acceptable use policy for them. I think someone might have posted that in our course. I think maybe, gosh, I can't remember where, but I remember seeing that too. I think maybe somebody put that in there. So anyway, so as far as teaching and learning with AI, if you've been playing with ChatGPT or some of the AI tools, spoiler alert for later, our week 2 discussion forum is all about AI tools, things that we've found and we've tried. If you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at that, I've got a couple of them listed in the slides for tonight. But this whole teaching and learning with AI thing, if you've played with ChatGPT or any of the AI tools, you probably have started to see your brain spin about all the different ways that you could potentially, incorporate this into your teaching or into student learning. So here's what I'd love for us to do. I'm going to share with you a bunch of ideas that I've brainstormed. As I'm doing that, feel free to do a number of different things. One, if you have an idea yourself that I haven't mentioned, drop it into the chat and I'll just keep pulling them over. Just as they're coming in, whenever I see them, I'll pull some of them over and give you a shout out. So if you have an idea of how, AI and ChatGPT or AI assistants or AI tools or whatever can be used in the classroom, drop it into that chat. Number 2, if I mention something in here and you have some experience with it, then feel free to drop it in. And then, of course, if you have questions or anything else, feel free to put those in and I'll keep pulling them over. All right, so let's just do a quick brainstorm here. Let's just kind of run through some of the things. I realize that the text on this is not very big, so I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger so that hopefully you can see it. But I'm going to read through some of these. These are just 12 quick ways to use AI in the classroom, just to get us started. This comes right out of a breakout session that I do at conferences and also at schools and school districts sometimes about artificial intelligence. So let's take a look at some of these. Let's look at the second one from the left. Use AI for lots of good examples. I've seen lots of folks on social media in a wide variety of places talking about this. I saw Jennifer Gonzalez talking about this in the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, which I highly respect. And the idea here is if you need exemplars for students of maybe what a project should look like or what a writing should look like or whatever, you can just ask the AI assistant for it, which is fantastic and easy. What it will also do is it will write it at a more complex level, at a simpler level. It'll include certain vocabulary. It'll add certain things. It'll do it from a certain perspective with a certain tone. I mean, all you've got to do is just ask it, and it will do really any of that stuff. What I've also seen teachers do, there's a teacher named Brittany Ferguson that I ran into on social media, and she said she used it to create leveled texts. And what she means by leveled text is, she's got kind of like a reading, but then she wants it at like a lower lexile or a higher lexile. And she said, I used to spend hours doing that. Now I just copy paste the reading into ChatGPT and I say, will you recreate this at a different lexile or a different level, or make it simpler, make it more complex or whatever. And it does it, which is great. Let's pull a couple of those comments in. Susan says, use ChatGPT to provide deeper content support as reflective reading to support open-ended peer-to-peer content to social engagement questions. Ooh, there's a lot there. Deeper content support as reflective reading to support open-ended peer-to-peer content to social engagement questions. Love that. Carrie says, I asked GPT-4, which, by the way, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong on this, GPT-4 is what you get when you do the premium version of ChatGPT. You get to get that higher level. If you're using the free version of ChatGPT, it is GPT 3.5. But she says, I asked GPT-4 for demonstrations for my physics class to do at stations on waves. While one suggestion was a little dangerous, again, you got to read it with your own like human eyes and human brain. It did give me some ideas that I hadn't done before. Okay, so now all of us are wondering, Carrie, are you willing to share the one dangerous one? Because we're all super curious now. If you don't want to, that's okay. Don't feel like you have to. So, and then one other one real quick before I keep going. Mike says, ask ChatGPT to ask review questions about a topic, one at a time, and only move on once I get it correct. That's great. That's almost like a little review kiosk, right? It becomes a never-ending review partner. That I never even considered that. That's a really great idea. What else have we got on our list? Again, I'm going to make this bigger, so hopefully you can read it a little easier. Number 3, the third one from the left, use AI to remix student work. Donnie Piercy, who I just mentioned earlier, was in that panel discussion. He's the Kentucky State Teacher of the Year. He was actually on Good Morning America because of the ways that he was incorporating ChatGPT into his class. And he mentioned this, how he would take student work, sometimes like a story that a student had created, and he would ask ChatGPT to remix it into a haiku or a nursery rhyme or a children's story or a sea shanty or a soap opera. And it was just really neat to see how it took that student work and then changed it around a little bit. But what that also did was it opened students' minds to the fact that, their work could even look a little bit different. Let's look at this fourth one from the left. Add AI to the think, pair, share thinking routine. I really love this one. So I ran across this one on Twitter. There was someone named Sarah Dillard. I always shout her out whenever I talk about this because I love talking about this one. And she said this might be one of the biggest, most pedagogically rich technology jumps that we can make. And she says, add ChatGPT to the think, pair, share thinking routine. So you go think, pair, ChatGPT, share, and then maybe ChatGPT again. So just think about that. Like, it just becomes an extra step in the process. You're asking students, and again, this is a great way to model how to use it responsibly so that students are still doing the thinking. Ask them to do their own thinking first. Ask them to have a discussion about it. And then once they've thought about it and talked about it, then they go to artificial intelligence to try to get a little bit more. They take what they've got from artificial intelligence, they bring it back to the group, and they hash it all out. So now what are they doing? They're not, the artificial intelligence isn't the end all be all. It's just one part of the entire learning process, which I thought was fantastic. Todd, this is fantastic also. He says, I just asked ChatGPT to tell the Odyssey as a rap summary. Oh, that's really good. I like that. Ash said, next year I have to teach 2 different streams of social studies in the same classroom. Ask ChatGPT to differentiate between 2 streams with quizzes or assignments, and it was incredible. I was like, wow, nice. Love that. And then Kathy says, ask ChatGPT to create a story based on several specific vocabulary words. That sounds like something I would do in my Spanish classroom. Then remixed to write it like a children's story. Really made the story fun. That just goes right off of that idea of using AI to remix student work. Here are a couple more ideas. Let's look at the 2 on the right. Grade the AI and debate the AI. I was talking to a friend of mine, Jen Giffen. She teaches in Ontario in Canada, right outside of Toronto, and she's like a high school English teacher. And she and her students have done some of this. She's given a prompt to ChatGPT for it to write an essay or a report or something. And then the students and her, they all look at the response and they determine what they think about it. And they even grade it according to the class rubric. So then they're grading the AI. Another thing you can do with the AI is debate it. Ask it to take one side of an argument so that you can debate with it. And then you give a point and it gives a counterpoint, back and forth, back and forth. I mentioned this in a conference presentation, and there was someone who was a debate coach, and they were like, this is going to give my students tons of reps and practice that they would never be able to do. So I love that. Mike says, I asked ChatGPT to write a rap about Lord of the Rings and the style of alphabet aerobics. I love that. That's great. Carrie says, a presenter at a workshop gave several teachers a link to sign into GPT-4. I have no idea about the financing, but it's free to me. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Maybe that's not ChatGPT. Maybe that's like part of OpenAI. You don't want to drop the link into the chat, do you? Sue says, working with an LA teacher like language arts on a poetry unit to create a competition where students will write poetry and then use ChatGPT to generate a similar poem and blind vote to pick a winner, human versus machine. That's interesting. And then this is really good. Timothy says, I asked ChatGPT to write a song similar to We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel using historical events. Mine, of course, was Star Wars. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, let's keep going. I just switched to page 2. So those first 6, those were 6 ways to use AI in the classroom. Here's 6 more. Let's take a look at number 7, the one on the far left here, which is use AI for insight into big, difficult to solve problems. It's interesting to have class discussions about, like, how do we get world peace? How do we solve hunger issues? How do we take care of nuclear weapon scares? And so we can have conversations like that, but then we could even ask artificial intelligence, how do we solve this problem? And it's not probably going to come up with the definitive answer to solve it, but it might be interesting to see what it has to say at least. How about this one, the third one over from the left? Anticipate the response you would expect from artificial intelligence. In fact, I've got a template for this that I'm going to show you. It's called the Be the Bot template. And so what you do with it, now this what you see in front of you, this is just an activity idea you can use, and just a little simple Google Slides PowerPoint template that we came up with to facilitate it. And so here's what you can do. You can put the prompt into the top part and then give this to the students and then say, what do you think ChatGPT would say about this? Because I mean, think about it. The way that ChatGPT summarizes things, it does it based on priority and importance, right? Kind of like, I mean, I studied journalism in college. That's a whole story for another day. I was going to be a journalist and not a teacher. But we have this thing in journalism called the inverted pyramid that says that the most important things go at the top of the story, and then the less important, least important. So that if an editor has to cut words out of a story, they just chop it off the bottom and leave the most important stuff at the top. So it's prioritizing things. This is kind of like a critical thinking exercise where students have to look at what they've learned and figure out what's most important and then write a summary based on that, which could be kind of cool. So if you like that idea, I'm going to put the link in the chat, Be the Bot template. You can find that at ditch.link/bethebot, all lowercase. I just dropped that into the chat if you want to click on that and go take a look at it. The template is super, super simple, but the idea, the idea works. Take several AI responses and make a better product. That's this fourth one right here. And so I've got yet another template and another activity idea that you can run with when it comes to this. Because what we're saying here is take several AI responses and make a better product. That's like, what if you, instead of writing an essay yourself, what if you ask AI to create 3 or 4 or 5 example essays? And you look at the similarities and you look at the differences and you pick out your favorite parts, and then you start to assemble another essay together from all of those. It's almost like I'm saying, okay, I like the beginning of the first one. I like the middle of this fourth one. And this second one, I like the ending of it. So now I go boom, boom, boom. I have a new essay composed of all the different parts. If you like that idea, check this activity out. This is something we came up with recently called the Frankenbot activity. If you can imagine why it's called that, Frankenstein made up of many parts, bot, artificial intelligence. But here's how it works. I know the text is really, really small, so let me just tell you what it says on here. So what you do as the teacher, you preload some of this as the teacher. For instance, the example that's in this one says it's basically 3 different versions of the same essay. So the essay topic that we used on this one was, tell me why the United States should not have used an atomic bomb in World War II, if we were discussing that part of U.S. history. And so it wrote the essay right here. And then the prompt, so when it wrote that essay, all I did was I just copy and pasted it and I stuck it onto this page of the Google Slides template. And then up here, the little prompt says, can you give me another version of that, please? And so you ask ChatGPT that. Again, I think I mentioned this in the first live stream. For whatever reason, I always feel like I have to say please and thank you to the artificial intelligence. And so it spits out another essay, which is different than the first one. Because remember, the artificial intelligence does the work brand new every single time. And then you say, can you give me one more version of that, please? So that's a third version. You copy that one, you paste it in. Now you have 3 separate essays. If 3 isn't enough, you can just duplicate some of these pages and make a 4th one and make a 5th one. Then you assign it to the students. This part over here is blank when you give it to the students, and this says my final version. So then what do the students do? They come over here and they read all of these essays, which means, first of all, they're getting exposure to multiple exemplars. Then they look at how all of those were formatted, and they grab the parts that they like the best to form a final draft over here. So I'll copy a little bit out of this one, drop it into my final draft. Copy a little bit of this one, drop it into my final draft. I might read through this one and realize that I don't like any of it. And so I take another piece of this one and drop it in here. And so then the students have created a final version. And because this is in Google Slides and PowerPoint, they can highlight each paragraph and put a comment on it and tell you why they liked that part. Now, with that particular activity, why in the world would we do something like that? Here's my rationale for it. Our students, as writers, sometimes get intimidated by the blank page with the blinking cursor on it. And sometimes it's hard just to get started or to be able to compose an entire essay yourself. So what they're doing here is A, like I said earlier, they're being exposed to multiple exemplars, and B, they are making decisions as a writer without having to write all of the words. So they're getting practice doing writer things without having to do the heavy lift of writing every single word. So that's another place that artificial intelligence can help, is it can kind of stand in the gap whenever the students are here and what we want them to do is here, and it's just the chasm is too wide in between. It can kind of stand in the gap in this way. And if you like this idea, but it doesn't totally apply to you, just think about how artificial intelligence could be used as a scaffolding mechanism, as a halfway point, as a let me get you sort of the way through there and then you finish it off type of thing. So if you like that idea, that's another one that you can totally run with. All right. So those are just some quick ideas. I love that you all threw some other ideas in here. Feel free to keep these coming if you want to. Sarah is digging the ideas. I think Maria was really liking that Frankenbot idea as well. Aaron's like, AI is a bridge to higher learning. Brilliant. Exactly. Right? So Mike mentioned earlier, ChatGPT does a great job writing. I love these. Choose your own adventure stories based on specific topics. It really engages the students into participating. If you're not familiar with those are the ones where you read a couple of pages in the book and then it gives you two choices. And based on what choice you pick, it takes you to a different part of the book and there's all these different endings. It's pretty cool. So I love that. Shelley even said, my class today asked what we can learn from the novel Fahrenheit 451. That's a good one. Okay, next question related to AI for teaching and learning is this. What if the students aren't the end users? And so there's a whole different string of things that we could do with this. But if we think about those terms of service, those terms of use, when you're using specifically ChatGPT, but with lots of these AI assistants, if your students aren't old enough to use it, think about it this way. The student doesn't have to be the end user. Remember, the end user, that's the person like laying fingers on the keyboard. That's the person that the terms of service and the terms of use applies to. What the AI creates is not bound under the terms of use. So that means that if you, the teacher, are doing the prompting to artificial intelligence and you're putting it up on the screen, or even if you're copy pasting the response into a document that you give your students, that helps you to model effective use of it and also let students get their hands on the prompts themselves. And so that's where I got into, what if the students aren't the end users? What are some things you could do? That's where I got into the Frankenbot template. I mean, think about this. I copied 3 different essays and pasted them into these spots. The students never had to lay a finger on ChatGPT themselves. So if you're looking for a way, if you're one of the many teachers that have been in the chat here that have been saying, oh, it's restricted at my school. Oh, it's restricted at my school. Oh, my students can't use it. These are some of the ways that you can. And that's where the Be the Bot template comes in too, because now students are starting to think kind of like the way that the artificial intelligence would. And when they understand how it works and the kinds of stuff that it spits out, then they're really starting to understand what it's capable of. Todd asks an important question. I want to know more about the choose your own adventure thing. How? That's fantastic. So Mike, if you've got like 2 seconds to give us a quick summary in the chat, that would be awesome. I don't know if you're just generally asking ChatGPT to create a choose your own adventure. Aaron's going to take a stab at it. You would need to set up a prompt that highlights how ChatGPT is to respond. You could set the place, the theme, the tone. You could be super advanced and assign XP or weapons. It could be like generic or Star Wars or whatever you prefer. Here's Mike. Prompt ChatGPT, write a choose your own adventure story about solving quadratics and force me to choose before moving on. Okay, so in that case, it looks like you're making it almost like a little like kiosk, like a little video game where it asks you and then you type it in and you respond. I also wonder if it would create one of those stories for you where it gave you all of the possible options and you could plug it into like a Google form or a Google slide where you click on an answer and it takes you to a different spot. All things to think about. Carrie says, I gave my forensic science students AI answers in a Google Doc. This is that whole not being the end user thing I was just talking about. They needed to summarize the answers and reduce the wordiness of the AI answers. And there's a lot of good, solid thinking when you do that kind of thing. You're basically justifying what's important, right? Okay. Let's touch on another featured resource. This is another resource that I put into your week 2 resources that you can go take a look at. This is a blog post we did recently called Lesson Planning with AI. And it's just a variety of different AI tools that can be used to support the lesson design and lesson planning process. So again, I'm going to full screen this so it's a little bit bigger. These are the 10 things that we talked about. So if you want to take a look at the if you want to take a look at this and go deeper in it, I'm going to grab the link real fast and put it into the chat, but it is in the week 2 resources. So this is lesson planning with AI, and then I'm going to paste that link in there. And so there it is right there. If you want to actually go look at this yourself, it's in the chat now. But look at some of the things that we've got. It goes from very simple, like ask ChatGPT for a lesson plan, because of course it can give you a first draft that you can run with. Ask Midjourney or DALL-E to create a lesson hook. In fact, I've got a slide that I'm going to get to in just a second where we talk about using image generators, AI image generators like Midjourney and DALL-E. Ask ChatGPT for analogies. And so that in my video that I shared with you a week ago, I asked ChatGPT for an analogy that would help explain the Peloponnesian War. And it said it was like 2 rival soccer teams. And then it gave me like 3 paragraphs detailing that analogy. So it can create some really great stuff. Curipod, I think I'm going to touch on that. Let me scroll. Yeah, I've got a slide about Curipod in a second, and I actually talked about it in our week 2 discussion forum. But I'm going to touch on that in a second. Ask ChatGPT for common misconceptions and struggles. I think this is huge if you've never considered doing this before. If you're getting ready to teach a lesson, just say, I want you to pretend that you are a 5th grade student. I'm getting ready to teach thus and such. What are your most common misconceptions and struggles with learning this? And then just see what it has to say. And there might be something that your students wrestle with that you never even realized that they were wrestling with. So, oh my goodness. Mike is going down the rabbit hole about the choose your own adventure stories. I just entered this prompt and it is still writing. Create an entire choose your own adventure story about the Civil War that I can copy and paste into another document. That is beautiful. Let us know at the end if it looks like it completed the process, like if it has a whole story. Joanne says, you may have already answered this, but with all the AI assistants out there, why do you focus mostly on ChatGPT? That's a great question. For me, it's because this is the most capable one. ChatGPT is the most capable one. Some other examples of ones that are out there, like Google has Bard, And Bard does some really weird things sometimes. I've even asked Google's AI to do some things, and it just doesn't really know what I'm talking about. And then ChatGPT is built into the Microsoft Bing web browser, but ChatGPT, just to me, is the one that A, most people seem to know about, but B, seems to be able to do the most stuff most consistently. I think its data set is deeper, and I think it's been trained more thoroughly, because it was the one, think about it, it was the one that was released in like the end of November of last year, because the developers decided that it was time to release a public version of it. With Bard and with Bing and with some of the other ones, they were forced to market in response. So yeah, that's a that's a good sign that sometimes things aren't fully cooked before. So anyway, that's why I keep coming back to that one. There are other ones too, like there's another one called Perplexity. I've tried it a little bit. It just doesn't seem to do quite the same stuff. If you find another AI assistant, and that's actually why I'll use that term AI assistant sometimes, I try to use that as a general blanket statement, saying that you can use lots of these if you want to. So, wow. So it looks like Mike and Todd are both going down the rabbit hole with the Choose Your Own Adventure stories. Todd says, good grief, it is working on it for the Odyssey. Love it. And then Mike says his is still on page 14. Remember, he just said a second ago, it's still writing, an entire Choose Your Own Adventure story. So, wow, looks like it works. And then Aaron says version 4, like GPT-4, will be able to take an image of a hand-drawn picture of a website, create code, and then show you how to launch it, which is incredible. Okay, so anyway, going back to this, there's all sorts of different things that you can use to support lesson planning and lesson design. And then we also have an AI integrated lesson planning workflow. So if you want a workflow that you can use to plan lessons with AI, there are some steps, and we've got some lesson plan examples, and those are all available in that link that I just dropped into the chat. If you haven't found it, there it is, or you can scroll up in the chat and be able to find that if you want to. Brooke Carpenter told us ChatGPT writes excellent parent communication emails. Have you ever thought about doing this? Brain dump the information you need and get a well-organized, warm parent email. And if you don't feel like it's warm enough, you just tell it, I want you to change the tone to be more warm and inviting, or whatever. So that was a really good one. Here's another thing you can do with artificial intelligence. Can ChatGPT be an additional voice in the classroom? So if you're having a class discussion, think about it. All you've got to do really is just have ChatGPT or an artificial intelligence assistant up on the projector screen or up on your smart board or your interactive display. And then whenever it's time to go ask it a question to add something to the class discussion, you just go over there and you ask it. Another way you can do that too is have ChatGPT or AI do one of those as if prompts where it starts to speak in place of somebody. So for instance, here's an example of what some as if prompts could be. And I would love, if you're watching this, to drop some ideas in the chat of some other as if prompts. What else could you tell ChatGPT or an AI assistant? I want you to act as if you were this person, this thing, this resource, this whatever, Let's just brainstorm in the chat. What are some as if prompts you can do? Here are some of the ones I came up with off the top of my head. Who could ChatGPT respond as if to add perspectives, context, and ideas of the classroom? Number 1, historical and literary characters. I want you to pretend like you're Marie Curie, or I want you to pretend like you're Emily Dickinson, or I want you to pretend like you're Mark Twain, or whatever. People in current events or pop culture. I actually did a version of this and included it in my book, AI for Educators, where I asked it to pretend like it was Barack Obama and tell me why you think pick dogs or cats as the like the best pet and tell me why. And so it generated this big response. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of sounds like him. But then I did a follow-up and I said, why did you write it like that? Like, how does that represent? And it gave me this big summary about how, he was always seeking to unite people and he didn't want to take, I don't know, it was like all of these different versions of why that would be Barack Obama's response to it, which I thought was super cool. People from a certain career field. If you're studying something and you say, I want you to, I want you to respond as if you were a nuclear physicist and to explain to my 6th grade students why, physics is important in your work or something. Or even people living in a certain location or a certain time period. So like pretend like you were living in the United States in the 1860s or, something like that. And so all 4 of those up at the top are all very curriculum and instruction based. This last one opens it up to a whole different thing. What about if you were a mentor teacher? What if you were a master teacher at some specific thing? What if you were, if you start to ask it to be the expert that you need perspective for to be able to write the lesson yourself, like that's another route that you could go to. So Rachel asks, is ChatGPT always classroom appropriate? Will it ever say things I need to talk my way out of? I have not heard a teacher talk about it suggesting things that are inappropriate. I mean, I guess it's possible. I have also found that it is generally very polite and it's generally pretty safe. If anybody's had any run-ins with it where it would say something that, like Rachel says, that you would have to talk your way out of, drop it into the comments and let us know. Carrie says, I really like this idea of asking for common struggles and misconceptions. We talked about that earlier, right? Intervention specialists could use this idea to help with scaffolding. Yes, absolutely. AL says, hello, I'm late. No worry. So my friend from OpenAI said, oh, that's right. We were going to get a question from someone from OpenAI. Said on this system won't take anything from what you input. It's not trained or programmed to do that, but a new feature will come out soon. Okay, that was the discussion, I think, where we were talking about copy pasting student work into it and asking it to provide feedback. And we were wondering, is it going to take that student work and put it into its data set? Or do we have to worry about, FERPA laws or child privacy laws or anything like that? So it sounds like it's not going to like consume the stuff. It's not like it's swallowing it and putting it into the data set or anything like that. Oh, Aaron said you could prime it ahead of time to offer only responses that are appropriate to your age group. That's a good idea. Wendy says a historical figure and ask ChatGPT to respond as if the historical figure made a different decision than they actually did. I love this idea. This is fantastic. Oh, look at this from Kathy. My high schooler used a curse word in a question and it admonished them for their rude language. I love it. Let's see. Okay, so those are some of the things we've talked a little bit about as if prompts here, and we brainstormed a little bit. If you come up with another good as if prompt, definitely drop that into the chat. Let's talk about a couple of other ways that we can use it in our lesson design and in our teaching. How about image creators? I'm curious to hear anybody in the chat that's had any exposure to or practice with any of these AI image creators. So for instance, you've got things like DALL-E, which is created by OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT. You've got Midjourney. Canva has this thing called text to image. And so if you've got the premium version of Canva, which by the way, for K-12 educators, you can get the premium version of Canva for free if you didn't know. There's this thing called Stable Diffusion, and then even Bing has this thing called Image Creator that will create images for you. All of the ones that you see on the screen right now, I made with Bing Image Creator. The way that Bing Image Creator works is that, you've got to like log in with your Microsoft account, which you can get for free. And then it gives you like 25 tokens. And what a token will do is it'll let you generate images, but whenever you use one of your tokens, it speeds up the response time. So, for instance, with these, like the one on the left, I was asking for a teacher looking like she's thoughtful in front of a laptop in a classroom. And then I didn't like what they gave me at first. And then I said, oh no, this is what it gave me when it came to that. Then I saw another example. And so I asked for the second one was I asked for a student at a computer looking excited in colorful pop art. And then that's what it came up with. This third one, take a look at this one and see what doesn't look right here. This is a picture of the White House with the Union Jack flying in front of it. And so what you can use this for sometimes is to create lesson hooks or little engaging images. And so the reason I put this one together was to ask the question, what would happen? What would have happened if the revolution from England hadn't worked out the way that it did? Let's say that all of the folks left England and went to the United States, and England came back over and waged war and claimed it for their own. So creating these scenarios that didn't happen, and then having it create an image to represent it could be really cool. And then this last one, I asked for a student with a backpack in a hallway in Disney Pixar style. So almost like she was a Disney Pixar character, and this is what it came up with. So I love some of the stuff that it can come up with. And I'm obviously not the only one who loves these image generators. Aaron saying Midjourney is fire. Abraham, Midjourney is dope. Yeah, absolutely. So this is good stuff. Danette says, I'm learning to use GraphAX image generator. I've not heard of that one before. That's another one to take a look at. So anyway, if you haven't taken a look at those, that's another thing you can use. Let's talk about AI created slides. And I wanted to show you Curipod. And so if you want to take a look at this and maybe even sign up for it, I'm going to give you a link, which you can see on the screen, but curipod.com. This is it's a freemium tool. So there's a free version and a premium version. I'll tell you the differences in a second, but it's basically AI created slides. So what happens is, this is just the home page. Let me make this bigger so you can see it a little easier. And then once you get logged in and you decide to create a lesson, here's how simple it is. Right above my little dot, it says, the topic for the lesson, and then it asks you what grade your students are in. And then down below it, you can include learning objectives and standards if you want to. And then you hit the little button. Can you see what the little button says on it? It says do magic, which it really is kind of like magic. You click that button and it takes maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds, and it creates a slide deck for you. And so this is what it all kind of looks like afterwards. But it's not just regular old static bullet points and pictures. This is an interactive slide deck. So kind of like Pear Deck and Nearpod, where students can interact on their own devices, only it makes the slides for you. And so this particular one started out with a word cloud as like a lesson hook, where students can write, some benefits of healthy eating habits. Then it gives you a few slides that has information. Then it gives you an open-ended question students can answer in pairs. It does brain breaks. It does checks for understanding at the end. And then you can even use this generators button right up here in the top left to generate even more slides. So if it starts with 12 slides and you're like, this is good, but I really need more slides about this particular topic, then you go up to the generator and you ask it to give you more slides, and it will give you more slides. So pretty cool. Back to the image generators for just a second. Aaron was saying, I'm using ChatGPT and Midjourney to create careers of the future slide decks. So obviously ChatGPT is for the text. Midjourney is to generate images. Who wants to be a human organ grower or a Mars colonist? And so you just give it a prompt of what image you want it to create, stick it on the slide, I assume. And then Aaron's using it for text as well. That's super cool. All right, one more quick featured resource that I hadn't mentioned before is that we've got this ebook in your resources called AI in the Classroom, 15 plus tools for teachers. So if you're looking for AI tools that you can use, this is a good place to go. And we've broken down a variety of them with some little summaries, how it works, what the pricing is, and everything. Oh, I told you I was going to tell you about the freemium version of Curipod. With Curipod, the free version lets you create 5 custom-made private lessons. And then if you want to make more than that, then you have to upgrade to the premium version, which looks like is $15 a month, I think. So, but obviously, if you have one of those accounts, if you just create a lesson and then whenever you're done with it, if you delete it, then you don't have any more than 5 in your account at one time, which can kind of save you. So anyway, there are, and where are the resources available? Again, they are in the course. And Chris is saying it looks like access is restricted on that resource on the AI in the Classroom. I'll take a look at that as soon as the live stream gets over with. In fact, I'm writing myself a little note right now. See, check this out. Pen and sticky notes from the AI presenter. Sometimes you got to go old school, right? So tools, PDF, access. There we go. Note for myself for later. Oh, good. Kathy says it's $9 per month if signed up for an entire year. Okay. So if you want to go month to month, looks like that's where it's 15. So, yep. Yeah, we're going to get that taken care of. So, okay. Let's keep moving, shall we? Because we're getting close to the end. There's that slide again. You are the most valuable resource in this course because I love, love, love to highlight all of the things that you all are saying. Here is our week 2 discussion prompt, and there's been a bunch of good stuff in here. Let's make a list of tools that use AI, tools that can benefit teachers and or students. And so I know that there's some of us that just haven't used AI tools a whole lot. And if you don't have anything to contribute to the list, that's fine because lots of folks have been adding things. I did just talk about Curipod a second ago, which is one of those AI tools that you can use to generate slides. And Sue put some good stuff into the chat also, or sorry, into the discussion board. She says, I posted in the chat as well, but FYI with Curipod, when I worked at home and left the tab open and then used it at school, it still worked. When other teachers tried it, the firewall blocked it. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so let's see some of the AI tools that you all shared. Here's one from Dallas Turner. I've also used some of the AI tools. Informative. Man, Formative is a tool I've been using for years. It's almost like Google Forms, but much more like a whole lot more features. Frequently known as GoFormative or formative.com. He says they have tools that generate questions and hints in assessments and assignments, but they have a tool in beta right now that creates lessons or trivia on any topic. Okay, so Formative is going big on this. So if you like creating quizzes or things that have that prompt students, almost like little assignments or activities that prompt students to respond. If you want to make one of those and have AI help you out, you might go check out Formative. That's pretty cool. And then this one right here from Dr. Kelly Irwin, there were so many that it required 2 slides. Parlay Genie, which comes from Parlay Ideas, which is a discussion tool. AI generated discussion prompts. Pretty cool. I've heard about this one a couple places. Codebreaker EDU. It's an AI bot created by educators for education use. So you can find that at codebreakeredu.com/chat. I was talking about Perplexity earlier, which is another chat bot. And so you can definitely use that. She talks about Consensus, which is a search engine that uses AI to find answers from peer-reviewed research. That's really interesting. AI Playground lets you compare responses from a variety of AI tools. Tome generates entire narratives. Chart GPT describes your data describe your data and quickly convert text into charts. So lots of things that you can use here. Carrie says, same with Slides AI. I got the AI add-on for my home account, created the slide, shared with my school account, worked fine. Okay. Oh, that was related to the Curipod thing that Sue was talking about. Here's another one. We're going to go back to Canva. And so sometimes when we're talking about AI tools, we're talking about tools that were created to use some of those AI features. And then we're talking about other tools that were created before, but are starting to insert AI into them. And so this one's Canva. The text to image uses text prompts combined with an artistic style to create images. I found this to be much more accessible to students. Last week, I worked with students creating digital book trailers for the independent reading books. Cool activity, by the way. Some students tried to recreate characters, scenes, and episodes from their books using text to image. And I found the conversations they had with themselves and others really added a layer of thoughtfulness to their work. They were probably prompt engineering and talking about what they got, I'm guessing. They're finding significance in nuance in a way I never really saw fourth graders think. Love that from Heather Esposito. So 2 more real quick ones that I wanted to highlight. If you're looking for more AI tools, go to futuretools.io. This is another one from Sarah Edwards. There's so many to try. At the time of this post, there were 1,455 total tools. She says, I was a total zombie looking at all of them. And then Sarah also shared DeepL, which is a really good translation site that she says is better than Google Translate. And then this one's really interesting to me. Random face generator. Found at this person does not exist with dashes in between all of it. This dash person dash does dash not dash exist.com. And it uses AI to create composite images of people by combining facial elements of dozens of people found on the web. She says it's useful if you need an image of someone without worrying about privacy because these people do not exist. Okay, a quick question. This is sort of more a discussion that we can have. So let me know your thoughts on this. Don brought this up, I think, in an email to me, and I had to sort of shorten it to get it on the screen. So we see the ... That's where I had to shorten it. So thank you, Don, if you're watching this, either live or on the replay for your question, because he's kind of like sharing his heart on all this. So he says AI as a concept is suffering from the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt factor. At present, and on the higher ed level, professors have reacted defensively to the release of ChatGPT. I'd say on the K-12 level also. In the meantime, part of our response here in Nashville to the sad recent events at Covenant, which is where there was a school shooting, have us looking at AI-enabled systems for patterns indicative of weapons. So it's like cameras that are trained on AI so that whenever it spots certain things, it identifies a pattern that's consistent with a weapon, then it notifies the authorities. So here's his question. Do you see the possibility, and if you're watching this, I'd love for you to weigh in on this also. Do you see the possibility of some form of rating or certification working for AI apps so that we're choosing from a curated list rather than just being subject to marketing hype? And there's a lot of that going on right now. In light of civil liberties concerns about how entities build data sets without our consent, there's a lot in that question. And so the big question is there some form of rating or certification? So we're choosing from a list rather than just being hyped up by marketing. And so to me, if we look at this from education, I feel like, and I think I highlighted this a little bit during week 1, I really feel like this is one of the strengths of all of us as educators in the education profession, in the education community, is that we are so good at sharing things. So I think whenever we get together in digital spaces and face-to-face spaces and we share what works with other teachers, I think that's one great way to do it. One thing that I personally worry about is that whenever you start to get politics and government involved in ratings and certifications and stuff like that, when politics gets involved in all of that, sometimes the best thing doesn't always come out. So that's just my personal take on that I would be worried about that a little bit. But he also makes mention in his question at the bottom about civil liberties concerns about how entities build data sets without our consent. I think that's a whole separate question. And if we knew a little bit more about these data sets, I think that would be good. But I think that's something that it'll be interesting to see how the AI companies handle that and how they do that ethically and responsibly and everything. So if you've got a take on all of that, definitely drop it into the chat. Ash asked, are you putting all of these AI tools in a document with hyperlinks for quick reference? All of these. Okay, so let's see. All of the ones that I mentioned in these slides over here, these are all in the, what's it called? They're in the discussion board for week 2. So at very, very least, you'll get that. Now that you've asked for a place where you can get to all of them, I might just do that. It'll depend on, remember, again, we just had lots of requests for lots of different types of resources that we could add to the course. And I'm trying to create as much of this stuff as possible. So I may be able to give it a shot. Unless Mary Alice has already done the work. She says, I have them all in an Excel with notes and examples. Mary Alice, if you get a chance to email that to me, just hit reply to any of the emails that you've gotten from me. I can maybe post that someplace where everybody can have access to it. Susan's going to take on Dawn's question. She says, how about replacing rating or certification with sealing for AI apps? Interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. So Mary Alice is willing to share her Excel sheet, which is awesome. Ash says maybe we can ask ChatGPT to make it for us. That's kind of like the answer to all of our questions, isn't it? So anyway, more food for thought when it comes to this question right here. But it is just about time for us to wrap up. So what next? This is what I'm looking to. And I mentioned earlier that I'd taken a whole bunch of those suggestions from you all. This is the ranking. I forgot that I put this in a slide at the end, but I did. The number one thing everybody seems to be most interested in getting more resources on, how to upgrade teaching and pedagogy with AI. I'm going to be putting my brain on that in a big way the rest of this week and into next week. So hopefully next week you'll have something related to that. Number 2 was to encourage deeper critical thinking with AI. Those all, in some ways, kind of go together. And then even number 3, sort of, how to improve the quality of student work with AI. And then we've got efficient and productive with AI in there also. So I'm going to put my brain on that and try to come up with some stuff. And then, of course, if you have any suggestions or ideas related to any of these, just hit reply to any of the emails that you get from me and tell me what your idea is, and I'll be able to shout you out in some of the resources that we create. So that puts a bow on week 2. Hopefully we've gotten some good stuff. We covered a lot of ground in this video, didn't we? So hopefully you've gotten something good that you can use or that you want to go try out or tinker with, or maybe something that's made you think a little bit different. So hopefully this has been valuable to you. I know all of our interactions that we've all had together that you've had with me and with everybody else has been fantastic. I learn a lot from you all every single week, and this week is no exception. So looking forward to seeing you all next week, either in the video replay or in the live stream. It'll again be on Wednesday. It'll be again at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. U.S. Pacific Time. Or, of course, you can always go watch the replay if you want to. So I had a blast hanging out with all of you. Todd says you're a beast. I think you all are a beast for consuming all this content and having all this stuff to share. So this has been awesome. Thank you so much. Mary Alice says, I will be down the rabbit hole this weekend and all summer. Susan found it resourceful, insightful, collaborative, and fun. That's fantastic. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to share all of the resources. So you all are the best. I have the best time hanging out with you all during these live streams. I'm going to be so sad when this course is over and we can't do this anymore, because I am really, really loving this. So anyway, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a wonderful, restful weekend. There will be new content coming out next week, including a new discussion post or a new discussion forum posted next Monday. Again, of course, we'll have the live stream going next Wednesday, and then I'll email you with any new resources that are added to the course. All right? Sound good? Looking forward to seeing you again next week. All right, take care. Have a great week and a great weekend. We'll see you next week.